My beloved soul, pause for a moment, because what you are about to hear is not ordinary. This is not just another message you scroll past and forget. This is a final spiritual alert. Right now, in this very moment, something sacred is trying to break through the noise in your life. And deep within your spirit, you already feel it, that quiet unease, that strange pull, that unexplainable feeling that something isn't right. You were not meant to stumble upon these words by accident. Oh, this was orchestrated. This was divinely aligned. Because the truth is far more urgent than you realize. You have been walking toward danger slowly, subtly, and without even knowing it. Not because you are careless, not because you are weak, but because the signs meant to guide you have been slipping through your awareness, one by one. Archangel Michael stands near you even now, his presence strong yet patient, his voice steady yet urgent. He has been sent as your protector, your guide, your spiritual defender. And for some time now, he has been trying to reach you. Not once, not twice, but again and again. Through moments that felt strange, through delays that frustrated you, through instincts you ignored, through doors that closed when you desperately wanted them open. But you kept moving forward, unaware that each step was taking you closer to something that was never meant for you. There were whispers in your spirit that you brushed aside. There were feelings in your chest that you couldn't explain. There were situations that didn't sit right with you, yet you convinced yourself to continue. You told yourself it was nothing. You told yourself you were overthinking. But what if those moments were not random? What if those were warnings? Heaven has been speaking, not loudly, not forcefully, but persistently. And the most dangerous thing is not the presence of danger itself. It is the silence that follows when warnings are ignored for too long. This is where everything changes. Because right now, you are being awakened. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now, this message is not here to scare you. It is here to open your eyes. To pull you out of a path that does not belong to you. To remind you that you are not alone, and you have never been unprotected. Even when you could not see clearly, Archangel Michael has been standing guard, watching every step, waiting for the moment you would finally hear him. And that moment is here. Something within you is beginning to shift. You can feel it, can't you? That sudden clarity. That quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, there were signs you overlooked. Moments you dismissed. Feelings you buried. But listen carefully, this is not the end of your story. This is the interruption that saves you. The path you have been on can still change. The direction can still shift. But awareness must come first. Recognition must come now. Because once you see the signs, you can never unsee them again. And Archangel Michael is not here by coincidence. He is here because this is the moment where everything could have gone wrong, but instead, everything is about to be made right. Stay with this message, because what is about to be revealed next will make you question everything you thought was just coincidence. There is something you must understand now, something that may stir your spirit in a way you did not expect. The warnings were never absent from your life. They were never hidden beyond reach. In fact, they were placed directly in your path, again and again, in ways so natural that you mistook them for coincidence. But they were never coincidence. They were signals carefully placed, divinely timed, and deeply personal. Think back for a moment. There were times when you felt an unexplainable hesitation about a decision. A quiet voice within you whispered, "Wait, something isn't right." But instead of listening, you pushed forward. You told yourself that fear was holding you back, that doubt was just weakness. Yet what if that hesitation was not fear at all? What if it was protection? There were also moments when things simply did not work out, no matter how hard you tried. Plans fell apart. Opportunities slipped through your fingers. Doors closed without explanation. You may have felt frustrated, even disappointed, wondering why life was resisting you. But what you could not see then is what is becoming clear now. Those closed doors were not rejections. They were redirections. Archangel Michael has been working behind the scenes, shielding you from paths that would have led to harm. When something didn't happen the way you expected, it was not because you were being denied. It was because you were being protected. But the mind often struggles to accept what the spirit already knows. And so, you kept moving forward, trying to force what was never meant to be. There were signs in your environment as well. Repeated patterns that kept showing up, conversations that felt strangely timed, warnings spoken through others that echoed something deep inside you. You may have brushed them off, thinking they were irrelevant or unrelated. But they were not random. They were part of a pattern designed to catch your attention. Even your dreams may have carried messages, symbols, feelings, and scenes that lingered in your mind after you woke up. Perhaps you dismissed them as imagination, but your spirit was trying to communicate in a language beyond logic, in a way that bypassed your doubts and reached directly into your subconscious. And then there were the moments of discomfort, those subtle feelings when something or someone didn't feel right. You couldn't explain it. There was no clear reason. Yet deep inside, something felt off. Instead of honoring that feeling, you questioned it. You gave the benefit of the doubt. You chose to ignore the unease rather than confront it. This is how the signs were skipped. Not out of ignorance, but out of trust placed in the wrong direction. You trusted logic over intuition. You trusted appearances over energy. You trusted what you could see, even when your spirit was trying to show you something deeper. But now, the pattern is being revealed. Every hesitation, every delay, every closed door, every uneasy feeling, it was all connected. It was all part of a divine effort to guide you away from something you were not meant to face. And the more these signs were ignored, the quieter they seemed to become, not because they stopped, but because your awareness drifted further from them. This is not said to bring guilt into your heart. It is said to bring clarity. Because once you recognize the pattern, you begin to understand that you were never abandoned. You were being guided the entire time, even when you felt lost. Archangel Michael does not force his presence. He does not overwhelm or control. He protects, he warns, and he waits. He waits for the moment when you are ready to see, ready to listen, ready to awaken. And that moment is unfolding now. The signs you once overlooked are beginning to make sense. The confusion is slowly turning into understanding. The noise is starting to quiet, and beneath it, something powerful is rising, awareness. But there is still more you need to see. Because there was one moment, one critical turning point, where heaven tried harder than ever to stop you. A moment that could have changed everything if only it had been fully understood at the time. That moment is about to be revealed. There was a moment, a very specific moment in your life that you cannot forget, no matter how much you try to move past it. It may not have seemed extraordinary at the time, but something about it lingered in your spirit. Something about it felt different. That was not just another day in your life. That was the moment heaven leaned in closer than ever before, trying with urgency to redirect your path. You remember it, don't you? It may have been a sudden disruption, plans collapsing at the last minute, something you were certain would happen suddenly falling apart. Or perhaps it was an encounter with someone who said something so precise, so unexpectedly accurate, that it shook you for a moment. It could have been a strong emotional reaction that came out of nowhere, a wave of discomfort or clarity that made you pause. That was not random. That was intervention. Archangel Michael was there in that moment, standing between you and something you could not yet see. His presence was not loud, not forceful, but it was powerful. He was holding back what could have unfolded, creating a barrier you did not even realize existed. He was guiding energy, shifting circumstances, and trying, one last time, to get your attention in a way you could not ignore. But something happened. Instead of stopping completely, instead of turning around fully, you hesitated and then you continued. You moved forward, perhaps slower, perhaps with a little doubt, but still in the same direction. And that is where the weight of this message rests, not in what you did wrong, but in what you almost avoided. Because that moment was not small. It was a crossroads. Heaven does not interrupt so strongly without reason. When such a moment appears, it is because something significant lies ahead, something that requires your awareness, your discernment, your willingness to change direction. That moment was designed to wake you up, to shake you just enough so that you would see clearly. And for a second you did. For a second, everything inside you aligned. You felt it in your chest, in your thoughts, in your instincts. You knew something was off. You knew something needed to change. But then the noise of the world returned. Doubt crept back in. Logic began to override intuition. And slowly, that clarity faded. This is how close you came. Closer than you realize. Archangel Michael does not step in at that level without urgency. That was not a gentle nudge. That was a spiritual intervention designed to protect you from a path that could have brought confusion, pain, or loss into your life. And even though you continued forward, he did not leave you. He has never left you. Instead, he has been walking beside you, watching carefully, waiting for another opening, another moment where you would be ready to truly listen. And that moment is now. Right now. As you hear these words, you are being brought back to that exact point of awareness. You are being shown what you could not fully understand before. Not to make you feel regret, but to give you power. Because now, you can see what was hidden. Now, you can feel what you once ignored. This is the mercy of heaven. You are being given another chance to recognize the warning before it is too late. The danger you were walking toward has not disappeared completely, but your awareness of it is now stronger than ever. And awareness is what changes everything. You are no longer walking blindly. You are no longer missing the signs. You are waking up. And as this awakening takes place, something powerful is being activated within you. A deeper sensitivity, a sharper discernment, a stronger connection to the guidance that has always been present. This is not coincidence. This is divine timing aligning in your favor. So do not ignore this moment again. Do not brush this aside as just another message. Because this right here is your turning point. Type I see the signs in the comments if you feel this awakening within you. Blessing code 911 is now being released over your path. And as this code is activated, understand this. Every step you take from this moment forward is being watched, guided, and protected with greater intensity than before. And now, if this message is reaching your spirit, there is a reason you are here at this exact time. This is not just a video. It is a mission. A mission to awaken souls who are unknowingly walking into danger, just as you once were. And through your support, this message can reach those who are still in that place of unawareness. When you give, you are not simply offering support. You are sowing light into someone else's darkness. Just as it is written, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over." This is not just a verse. It is a living promise being activated through you right now. If you feel the pull in your heart, do not ignore it. This is your moment to act. The PayPal link is in the description, and a QR code is placed within this space for you. Step into alignment with this divine flow and release what has been placed on your spirit to give. Because what you release in faith will return multiplied in ways you cannot yet see. Now receive this and stay open, because what is about to unfold will reveal why you couldn't see the signs clearly before. There is a reason all of this felt hidden from you, and it is deeper than simple distraction. What you experienced was not just oversight. It was a kind of spiritual fog, a quiet interference that clouded your ability to fully recognize what was being shown to you. And this is something many never realize until it is revealed like it is now. You were not blind by accident. There were forces, both internal and external, that made it difficult for you to see clearly. Not because you were incapable, but because your focus was being pulled in too many directions at once. Your mind was occupied with responsibilities, pressures, emotions, and expectations that demanded your attention daily. And while you were trying to keep everything together on the outside, your inner awareness was slowly being drowned out. This is how clarity begins to fade. When life becomes loud, the voice of intuition becomes harder to hear. When emotions become overwhelming, discernment becomes clouded. And when you are constantly moving, constantly thinking, constantly reacting, you lose the stillness required to truly see what is in front of you. But there is more. Some of what you experienced came from within. Old wounds, past disappointments, and moments where your trust was broken. These experiences shaped the way you interpret situations. They made you second-guess yourself. They made you hesitate when your instincts spoke. Instead of trusting what you felt, you learned to question it, to analyze it, to sometimes even dismiss it entirely. This is how the connection weakens, not because it disappears, but because it becomes harder to trust. And then there is the external noise, the opinions of others, the expectation that placed upon you, the pressure to follow certain paths or make certain choices. These influences may not have seemed harmful, but they created a layer of confusion over your own inner guidance. You began to listen more to what made sense on the outside rather than what felt right on the inside. This is where misalignment begins. Because what looks right is not always what is right for you. And while all of this was happening, Archangel Michael was still present, still watching, still protecting. But his guidance, like all divine guidance, does not force itself into your awareness. It requires openness. It requires stillness. It requires a willingness to listen beyond the surface. When those conditions are missing, the signs do not stop. They simply become harder to recognize. Think about the moments when everything felt overwhelming, when your mind was racing and your heart felt heavy. In those moments, even the clearest signs could have passed right in front of you, and you would not have seen them fully. Not because they weren't there, but because your awareness was focused elsewhere. This is not failure. This is human. But now, something is changing. The fog is beginning to lift. The noise is starting to quiet. And the same signs that once felt unclear are now becoming sharper, more defined, more impossible to ignore. This is not because they suddenly became stronger. It is because you are becoming more aware. And awareness changes everything. And now you are beginning to understand why certain things felt confusing before. Why some decisions didn't sit right even when they seemed logical. why certain paths felt forced instead of natural. You are seeing the difference between what is aligned and what is not. This is the clarity you were missing. And with this clarity comes responsibility, not in a heavy or overwhelming way, but in a powerful and freeing way. Because now, you have the ability to choose differently. Now, you can pause when something feels off. Now, you can listen when that quiet voice speaks. Archangel Michael is closer than ever in this moment of awakening. His presence is not just protective, it is illuminating. He is cutting through the confusion, removing the layers that once blocked your vision, and helping you see with a level of truth you have not experienced before. But there is something you must be prepared for. As clarity increases, so does awareness of what lies ahead. And what lies ahead is something that must be understood carefully, because the danger you were walking toward has not completely disappeared. It is still there, waiting, unchanged. The difference now is that you can finally see it. And what you are about to understand next will reveal exactly what that danger is, and why it was so important for you to wake up when you did. What you are about to understand now is something that may stir your spirit deeply, because the danger you have been approaching was never obvious. It was never something that would have frightened you at first glance. In fact, it may have appeared normal, even appealing. That is what made it so dangerous. Not all danger announces itself with fear. Some of it comes quietly, wrapped in familiarity, disguised as opportunity, comfort, or even connection. And this is exactly why it was so easy to keep walking toward it without realizing what was truly ahead. The danger was not just a single event or moment. It was a path, a direction that, over time, would have led you into a space of confusion, emotional drain, and spiritual misalignment. It could have been tied to a person whose energy did not align with yours, someone who seemed right on the surface, but carried intentions or patterns that would slowly pull you away from your peace. Or it could have been a decision, a commitment, or a situation that looked promising but held consequences you could not yet see. This is how subtle it was. There was no immediate warning sign that screamed stop. Instead, there were small inconsistencies, quiet discomforts, and fleeting moments of doubt. These were the clues. These were the cracks in the surface that revealed something deeper. But because they were not overwhelming, they were easy to overlook. And that is how the path continued. Archangel Michael saw what you could not see. He understood where this road was leading long before you reached its turning point. He knew the weight it could place on your spirit, the confusion it could bring into your mind, and the distance it could create between you and your true purpose. This was not just about avoiding a difficult situation. This was about protecting your alignment, your peace, your clarity, your connection to what is meant for you. Because once you step too far into the wrong path, it becomes harder to recognize your way back. Not impossible, but more challenging. The longer you stay in a space that does not align with your spirit, the more it begins to affect how you think, how you feel, and how you see yourself. That was the real danger. It was not something that would have happened instantly. It would have unfolded slowly, over time, making it harder for you to notice the shift. You might have started to feel more drained than usual, more uncertain, more disconnected from your inner peace. You might have questioned yourself more, doubted your instincts, or felt like something was off without being able to explain why. This is how misalignment works. In the rush, it settles in quietly, and by the time it becomes obvious, it has already taken root. But this is where everything changes, because you are seeing it now before it fully unfolds. This awareness you are gaining is not just information, it is protection. It is the light being turned on before you walk any further into something that does not belong in your life. That is the moment where you are given the chance to step back, to reassess, and to choose a different direction. Archangel Michael has been holding this moment for you. He has been waiting for the exact point where your awareness would be strong enough to understand what is at stake. And now that you are here, the choice becomes clear. You do not have to continue down this path. You do not have to ignore the feelings that have been trying to guide you. You do not have to convince yourself that something is right when deep down, you know it is not. Instead, you can pause. You can step back. You can listen. And most importantly, you can trust what is being revealed to you now. Because the danger loses its power the moment you become aware of it. What once had the ability to pull you in quietly now stands exposed. What once felt uncertain now begins to make sense. And what once seemed harmless now reveals its true nature. This is not something to fear. This is something to be grateful for. Because not everyone receives this level of warning before it is too late. Not everyone is given the clarity you are receiving right now. This is a form of protection that goes beyond what you can see. A divine intervention that is guiding you away from something that was never meant for you. But there is still one more layer to this. Because the danger was not only external. It was also connected to something within you. A voice you heard, but chose not to fully trust. And that is what you are about to understand next. There is something within you that has always known more than your mind was willing to accept. Long before explanations, long before logic, long before advice from others, there was a quiet voice inside you that responded instantly to truth. It did not speak in words the way people do. It spoke in feelings, in sudden clarity, in unexplained comfort or discomfort, in that instant knowing that arrived before thought could interfere. And the truth is you heard it. You heard it more than once. But over time, something changed in the way you responded to it. At first, you may have trusted it naturally, without question. You followed small instincts, made small adjustments, avoided certain situations without even knowing why. And those moments likely protected you in ways you never fully recognized. But then came the moments where that inner voice conflicted with what seemed logical, or what others expected, or what appeared to make sense on the surface. And in those moments, a quiet shift began to happen inside you. You started to pause before trusting it. You started to question whether it was truly guidance or just emotion. You started to weigh it against reasoning, against opinion, against external pressure. And slowly, without even realizing it, you began to silence something sacred. This is not something that happens suddenly. It happens gradually, through small decisions, small overrides, small moments where you chose certainty over instinct. And each time you did, the voice did not disappear. It simply became quieter, not because it lost power, but because it was no longer being fully received. Archangel Michael has always worked in harmony with this inner guidance. His protection is not always external. Often, it flows through that very voice within you. The sense of something is not right, the sudden pause before a decision, the unexplained hesitation before a step forward. That inner signal is often the earliest form of divine protection. But when it is ignored repeatedly, something begins to shift in perception. Not in truth, but in awareness of truth. And that is where confusion enters. You may remember moments where everything looked correct on paper, yet something inside you felt unsettled. Or situations where you could not explain why you felt drawn to step back, even when there was no visible reason to do so. Those moments were not random emotional fluctuations. They were communication. The deeper truth is this. Your spirit has always been in conversation with you. But the world is loud. It teaches you to prioritize what is visible over what is felt, what is proven over what is sensed, what is spoken over what is known. And in that environment, the inner voice often becomes something you second-guess rather than something you follow. This is how people walk into situations they later cannot explain, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they disconnected from the earliest form of awareness meant to guide them. And now, as this message reaches you, something is being reactivated. You may notice it even as you listen or read these words, a slight return of clarity, a familiar feeling rising again beneath the noise of thought. That is not imagination. That is recognition. It is your spirit remembering how to hear again. Because the inner voice never truly leaves. It waits. It adapts. It pauses when ignored, but it never disappears. And Archangel Michael does not replace that voice. He strengthens your ability to trust it again. He helps cut through the interference that made it difficult to distinguish fear from intuition, doubt from warning, anxiety from clarity. There is a difference between emotional noise and spiritual guidance, but that difference becomes harder to see when you are overwhelmed, distracted, or emotionally burdened. And during those times, even the clearest guidance can feel uncertain. But here is what is changing now. You are beginning to feel that distinction again. You are beginning to recognize moments where something inside you responds before thought interferes. You are beginning to notice that not every hesitation is fear, and not every pull forward is alignment. Discernment is returning. This is not a sudden transformation. It is a gradual awakening of something that was always there. And with this awakening comes responsibility. Not pressure, but awareness. Because once you begin to hear clearly again, you are being invited to trust what you hear. This is the point where many shifts begin. Not in the external world first, but within. A realignment of perception, a recalibration of trust, a return to inner guidance that was never meant to be lost, only temporarily overlooked. But there is still something deeper unfolding beneath this realization. Because the moment you start trusting that inner voice again, you begin to understand something even more important. The danger you were warned about was not only around you, it was also shaping how you saw your path. And what you are about to understand next is how everything begins to shift when you finally return to alignment. Right now, something important is happening within you, even if you cannot fully describe it yet. It is subtle, but it is real. A shift is forming beneath your thoughts, beneath your concerns, beneath everything that once felt confusing. And this shift carries one powerful truth. You are not too late. No matter what you have walked through, no matter what signs you missed, no matter how many times you questioned yourself or moved forward despite hesitation, the path in front of you is still open. This is the part many fail to understand when they feel spiritually unsettled. They assume that missing warnings means losing direction forever. But that is not how divine guidance works. Archangel Michael does not appear only to judge where you have been. He appears to guide where you can still go. There is a moment in every journey where awareness returns strongly enough to change everything. That moment is not punishment. It is mercy. It is the point where confusion begins to dissolve and clarity begins to rise. And you have just entered that space. You may still feel echoes of doubt. That is natural. When someone has been moving through uncertainty for a while, clarity does not arrive as a sudden explosion. It arrives like light slowly entering a room that was dim for too long. At first, you adjust. At first, you question what you are seeing. But gradually, things become visible again. That is what is happening to your spirit now. The same signs that once felt unclear are beginning to reorganize themselves into understanding. The same feelings you once dismissed are beginning to make sense in a new way. You are not imagining this shift. You are witnessing your own awakening. And with this awakening comes a realization that can feel both overwhelming and relieving at the same time. You are still protected. Protection did not stop when you misunderstood the signs. Guidance did not withdraw when you hesitated. Archangel Michael did not step away when you moved forward uncertainly. Instead, protection adapted to your awareness, guiding you even when you could not fully recognize it. This is what divine protection often looks like. It does not always prevent movement. Sometimes it preserves direction while allowing experience, ensuring that even when lessons are learned slowly, they are not destructive beyond repair. And now, you are at a point where you can see again. Not everything at once, but enough to shift course. Enough to pause. Enough to choose differently. Enough to step out of what no longer aligns before it becomes something heavier than it needs to be. This is your turning point. Not because everything around you has changed, but because you have. There is a strength returning to you now that was always there beneath the confusion. A steadiness in your awareness. A quiet confidence in your instincts. A sense that you do not have to rush forward blindly anymore. You can observe. You can listen. You can choose with awareness instead of reaction. And this changes everything. Because when awareness returns, so does choice. And when choice returns, so does direction. You are no longer simply being carried by circumstances. You are beginning to participate in your path again. That is the difference between confusion and clarity, between drifting and walking with intention. Archangel Michael's presence in this moment is not distant. It is close, supportive, anchoring. It is the kind of presence that does not overwhelm but stabilizes. You may not see it, but you can feel it in the way your thoughts are beginning to slow, in the way your spirit is beginning to settle, in the way something inside you is saying, I understand now more than I did before. That is alignment returning. And as alignment returns, so does the ability to recognize what belongs in your life and what does not. Not from fear, but from clarity. Not from anxiety, but from truth. You begin to feel the difference without needing external validation. This is the beginning of discernment being restored. And once it is restored, you cannot unknow it. But there is still a deeper layer unfolding in this moment. Because now that you are beginning to see the turning point, you must also understand what happens when you fully step into this awareness, and how everything around you begins to respond when you do. What you are experiencing right now is not random. It is not just reflection, and it is not just emotion rising to the surface. Something deeper is happening in real time, something that cannot be explained through coincidence alone. This is a divine intervention unfolding in your awareness, gently but powerfully, exactly at the moment you were meant to receive it. There are moments in life where heaven does not wait for perfect timing. It moves into your present reality and begins reshaping how you see everything. And this is one of those moments. You may feel a shift in how you interpret your past, a new awareness of the choices you made, or even a strange sense of calm mixed with realization. That is not confusion. That is alignment beginning to restore itself. Archangel Michael is not distant in this. His presence is not symbolic or abstract. It is active, protective, and deeply engaged with your current state of awareness. He is not here to overwhelm you with fear, but to stabilize what has been shaken within you. The confusion you once carried is being met with clarity. The doubt that once clouded your perception is being met with truth that feels undeniable at a deeper level. You were never abandoned in your uncertainty. even in the moments where you felt unsure, even in the times where you questioned your own instincts, you were still being guided. The intervention was not always loud or dramatic. Often, it was subtle. A delay that frustrated you. A connection that didn't develop the way you expected. A situation then shifted unexpectedly. At the time, these may have felt like disruptions, but now they are beginning to reveal themselves as protection in disguise. This is how divine intervention often works. It does not always stop the path, it redirects it. It does not always prevent experience, it filters what reaches you. And most importantly, it never stops working on your behalf, even when you are unaware of it. Right now, you are being brought into awareness of something that was always active around you. The signs were never missing. They were layered, woven into your daily experiences, waiting for the right moment for your understanding to catch up. And now, that moment has arrived. You may notice a growing sensitivity within yourself, a stronger reaction to situations that feel misaligned, a quicker recognition of what feels right and what does not. This is not overthinking. This is your discernment being restored. It is the result of clarity returning after a period of confusion. And this clarity is not temporary. He is building. Archangel Michael's role in this is not just to protect you from what you do not see, but to help you recognize what you were not able to see before. Here's a difference between being shielded and being awakened. And right now, both are happening simultaneously within you. You are being shielded from deeper misalignment while also being awakened to the patterns that led you here. This combination is what creates true transformation. Not avoidance, but understanding. Not fear, but awareness. And as this awareness deepens, something important begins to happen. You stop questioning every signal you receive and start recognizing them more naturally. You stop dismissing your intuition as uncertainty and begin to understand it as guidance. You stop looking outward for confirmation and begin to notice the clarity forming within you. This is the beginning of spiritual recalibration. And it is happening now, not later, not someday. You may feel a pull to reflect on recent events in your life. Situations that once felt confusing may now start to make sense. Choices that seemed unclear may now reveal their purpose. This is not revision of memory. This is deeper understanding being revealed at the right time. Nothing about this is accidental. Even the fact that you are hearing or reading this message now is part of that unfolding awareness. It is reaching you at a point where you are ready to perceive it differently than you would have before. This is why it feels different. It is not just information, it is timing. And in moments like this, something subtle but powerful begins to form within you. Trust. Not blind trust, but grounded trust in your own ability to sense, to feel, and to understand more clearly than before. This is what divine intervention ultimately leads to. Not dependence, but awareness. Not confusion, but alignment. As this part of your awakening strengthens, you are being prepared for a deeper understanding of the path ahead. Because what comes next is not just reflection on the past or awareness of the present. It is clarity about the direction you are now being guided toward, step by step, with greater protection than ever before. There is a version of your life that has always existed quietly in the background of your journey. It is not a different life in the sense of something completely unfamiliar, but rather a clearer, more aligned version of the path you were always meant to walk. And the reason you are sensing this now is because your awareness has reached the point where you can finally recognize the difference between what pulls you off course and what brings you into alignment. You were never meant to live in confusion. You were never meant to constantly question your instincts or feel uncertain about your direction. That state of inner conflict was never your destination. It was a phase of experience, a place where lessons form through contrast. But it was never your final state. The path you were meant to walk is one of clarity. Not constant perfection, not absence of challenge, but a deeper sense of knowing within yourself that you are moving in the right direction even when things are not fully visible yet. Archangel Michael has always been connected to this path. His role is not only to protect you from what is misaligned, but to guide you back toward what is true for you. And truth, in this sense, is not always loud or dramatic. It is often calm. It feels steady. It does not create inner conflict. Instead, it brings a sense of quiet recognition, even if the mind does not fully understand it yet. What you have been experiencing until now is contrast. You have seen what happens when something does not align, when situations feel forced, when energy feels heavy, when decisions leave you questioning yourself afterward. That contrast was not punishment. It was teaching. It was showing you, through experience, what does not belong on your path. And now, something within you is beginning to recognize what does belong. You may notice it in subtle ways. A sense of ease when certain thoughts arise. A quiet sense of relief when you step back from something that once felt uncertain. A growing awareness that not every opportunity is meant for you, and that this is not loss, but protection. The path you were meant to walk does not require you to constantly second-guess yourself. It does not leave you in cycles of confusion or emotional exhaustion. Instead, it gradually strengthens your inner clarity. It allows you to move forward without needing constant external validation because something within you already understands the direction. This is what alignment feels like when it begins to return. It is not about everything becoming easy. It is about becoming aware enough to recognize what is truly yours and what is not. And once that awareness begins to form, your decisions naturally start to shift. You begin to step away from what drains you. You begin to feel drawn toward what feels peaceful, even if it is unfamiliar at first. This is where transformation begins to take shape, not through force, but through recognition. Archangel Michael's guidance in this stage is subtle but consistent. It does not overwhelm your thoughts. It strengthens your discernment. It helps you notice what your spirit hath been trying to tell you all along. And as you begin to trust that inner recognition more deeply, your path begins to realign in ways that feel increasingly natural. You are no longer walking purely through reaction. You are beginning to walk through awareness. And this changes how you experience everything. Situations that once confused you may now feel easier to read. Choices that once felt overwhelming may now feel more straightforward. Not because life has simplified itself, but because your perception is becoming clearer. This clarity is the beginning of returning to your intended path. It is important to understand that this path is not something outside of you waiting to be discovered in a single moment. It is something that unfolds as you become more attuned to your own inner guidance. Each time you choose awareness over confusion, each time you pause instead of rushing, each time you listen instead of ignoring what you feel, you step closer to it. And with each step, the noise of misalignment begins to fade. What remains is a quieter, more grounded sense of direction. You may still have questions. That is natural. You may still feel moments of uncertainty. That is part of integration. But something fundamental is shifting within you now. You are beginning to trust your own perception again. And that trust is the foundation of everything that comes next. Because once you begin to recognize your true path, you also begin to understand how to leave behind what does not belong there. And that understanding is what leads you into the next stage of your awakening, where you are not only seeing the difference between paths, but learning how to fully step away from what has been holding you back. What you are beginning to realize now is something that changes everything from this point forward. Awareness alone is not the final step. It is what awareness allows you to do that truly transforms your path. And right now, you are standing at the edge of that transformation, the moment where you begin to break free from cycles that have kept you uncertain, drained, or repeatedly questioning your direction. These cycles were never meant to define you. They form through experience, repetition, emotional response, and patterns that slowly became familiar. And anything that becomes familiar can start to feel normal, even if it is not aligned with your true path. That is how cycles continue, not because you are trapped, but because you are accustomed to the rhythm of them. But something within you is no longer resonating with that rhythm in the same way. You may notice it in subtle shifts. Situations that once pulled you in now feel less compelling. Patterns that once felt unavoidable now feel interruptible. Thoughts that once led you into overthinking now lose some of their influence. This is not random. It is the beginning of separation from what no longer serves your growth. Archangel Michael's presence in this stage is not about forcefully removing you from anything. It is about strengthening your ability to recognize when something no longer belonged in your life. That recognition is the key that unlocks freedom. Because you cannot break free from what you do not see clearly. But once you see it, something within you begins to shift naturally. This is where true change begins, not in resistance but in awareness. You start to understand that not every connection, opportunity, or direction that once felt important still carries the same meaning for you now. People, situations, and choices that once felt aligned may begin to feel distant, not because they changed, but because you are changing. And this is an important part of your evolution. Breaking free from cycles does not always require dramatic action. Sometimes it begins internally, with a simple but powerful shift in perception. You begin to notice patterns instead of being pulled by them. You begin to feel the repetition instead of being absorbed by it. And in that awareness, something quiet but powerful happens. You gain distance. A distance is where freedom begins. Because when you are no longer fully immersed in a cycle, you can finally observe it for what it is. And once you observe it clearly, you begin to understand whether it belongs in your future or not. Archangel Michael supports this clarity by strengthening your discernment. Not by deciding for you, but by helping you see more clearly what aligns with peace and what creates disturbance within your spirit. This is why certain situations may begin to feel more obvious now than they did before. What once felt complicated may now feel simpler to interpret. What once felt confusing may now reveal its pattern more clearly. This is not change in the external world first. This is change in your perception of it. And that change is powerful enough to redirect your entire experience. As you continue to break free from old cycles, you may also feel moments of resistance within yourself. That is natural. Any long-standing pattern creates familiarity, and letting go of familiarity can feel uncomfortable at first. But discomfort does not always mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means something is shifting. You are not losing stability. You are gaining clarity. And clarity will always feel different at first when you are stepping away from confusion. What is important now is not rushing the process, but recognizing it. You do not need to force yourself into rapid change. You simply need to acknowledge what you now see. Because awareness itself begins to weaken the hold of old cycles. Each time you recognize a pattern instead of reacting to it unconsciously, you strengthen your ability to move beyond it. Each time you pause instead of repeating an old response, you create space for something new. And each time you choose clarity over confusion, even in small ways, you step further out of limitation and closer into alignment. This is how freedom is built, not in a single moment, but in a series of conscious recognitions. Archangel Michael's guidance continues to support you in this process, not by removing your responsibility, but by reinforcing your awareness. You are not being carried away from your life. You are being guided into a more conscious way of living it. And as the shift deepens, something important begins to emerge within you, a stronger sense of self-trust. The more you recognize cycles for what they are, the more you begin to trust your ability to move differently. And that trust becomes the foundation for everything that follows. Because once you break free from the cycle, you no longer just see the pattern, you begin to rise above it. And what you are about to understand next is how this rising awareness changes not only your present path, but how everything around you begins to respond when you finally step fully into alignment. Something is changing in the way life responds to you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but steadily, like a veil lifting that you did not even realize was there until you began to notice what lies behind it. The signs that once felt confusing are beginning to take shape with more clarity. The same situations that once left you uncertain are now speaking in a language you are slowly beginning to understand. This is what happens when awareness stabilizes. You are entering a phase where confusion loses its influence over you, not because life becomes perfect, but because your perception becomes sharper. You begin to notice patterns faster. You begin to feel the energy of situations more clearly. You begin to sense when something aligns and when something does not, without needing prolonged analysis or external validation. Archangel Michael's presence in this stage is steady and reinforcing. It is not about overwhelming intervention anymore. It is about strengthening your discernment so that you can recognize guidance on your own. Protection is still present, but now it works in harmony with your awareness rather than overriding it. This is an important shift, because earlier in your journey, signs may have felt subtle, even uncertain. You may have questioned whether what you felt was real or just imagination. But now, something different is happening. The same inner signals are becoming more consistent. The same intuitive nudges are becoming easier to recognize. The same patterns that once felt random are now beginning to reveal structure. This does not mean life is suddenly simple. It means you are becoming more capable of understanding it. And with that understanding comes a quiet confidence that begins to grow within you. You may notice that your reactions are changing. Where there was once hesitation, there is now a pause followed by clarity. Where there was once overthinking, there is now a more immediate sense of what feels right or wrong for you. This is not instinct alone. It is refined awareness. The signs around you are not increasing in number. They are increasing in visibility. You are seeing them because you are now positioned to see them. Archangel Michael's guidance often works in this way. It does not always introduce new signals. Instead, it removes interference so that what was already present can be understood more clearly. And as interference fades, patterns become easier to interpret. You may begin to reflect on recent events and realize that you were being guided all along. What once felt like confusion may now appear as redirection. What once felt like delay may now feel like protection. What once felt like uncertainty may now reveal itself as timing. This shift in perception is not rewriting your past. It is revealing the meaning behind it. And as meaning becomes clearer, something important begins to form within you. Trust in your inner awareness. This trust is not built overnight. It grows each time you recognize something correctly within yourself. Each time you follow a feeling that turns out to be right. Each time you step away from something that does not align and later realize why. These experiences build a foundation of self-recognition that becomes stronger over time. And now, you are beginning to stand on that foundation. You may still encounter moments where doubt tries to return. That is natural. Old patterns of thinking do not disappear instantly, but what changes is their influence over you. Doubt no longer has the same authority it once did. It no longer defines your perception. It only passes through, without anchoring itself as strongly as before. This is growth, and growth always comes with increased awareness. As the signs become clearer, you may also notice something else. Your life beginning to respond differently. Situations may feel more synchronized. Choices may feel more guided. Even timing may seem more aligned than it used to. This is not external magic changing your reality. It is your perception aligning with what has been there all along. Nothing outside of you has suddenly become different. You have become more aware of what was always in motion. Archangel Michael's role continues to be supportive, ensuring that as clarity increases, you are not overwhelmed by it. Instead, you are guided into stability. The purpose is not to flood you with information, but to help you integrate understanding in a way that strengthens your path rather than disrupts it. And so, you begin to move forward differently. More observant, more grounded, more aware of what resonates with your spirit. The signs will continue to become clearer, not because life is changing its language, but because you are finally learning how to read it. And as this clarity deepens, you are approaching a final realization, one that brings everything together, where understanding becomes peace, and awareness becomes protection. This is where your journey gently settles into its final message, where everything you have been shown begins to make complete sense within you. And now you arrive at a quieter place within yourself. A place where everything that once felt scattered begins to settle. Not because every question has been answered, but because you finally understand the direction of your journey. There is a difference between knowing every detail and simply knowing you are guided. And what you are feeling now is that deeper sense of being guided, even through moments you once could not explain. The urgency begins to soften. The intensity begins to fade. And what remains is something steady, something grounding, something deeply reassuring. You are not walking blindly anymore. You are not moving without awareness. Something within you has changed, and it cannot be undone. Archangel Michael's presence now feels less like a warning and more like a shield of calm around your spirit. What once felt like confusion is now being replaced with understanding. What once felt like uncertainty is now transforming into quiet recognition. You can see now that you were never abandoned in your journey, not even for a moment. Every delay had purpose. Every redirection carrying protection. Every moment you thought you were lost was actually a moment you were being guided away from something that was not meant to remain in your life. And even though you could not always see it at the time, it was always working in your favor. This is the kind of understanding that brings peace, not because everything becomes perfect, but because everything begins to make sense in a deeper way. You may notice now that your spirit feels lighter as you reflect on everything you have heard. That heaviness that may have been present earlier is beginning to release itself. This is what happens when confusion is replaced with clarity. The mind relaxes, the spirit steadies, and awareness becomes your new foundation. You are being reminded that you are not walking this path alone. There is guidance around you, within you, and ahead of you. And as you continue forward, you will begin to trust that guidance more naturally. Not because you are told to, but because you are beginning to recognize how consistently it has been present in your life. Archangel Michael does not force direction. He strengthens awareness so you can walk your own path with clarity and protection. And that is what is now unfolding within you. A return to inner knowing, a return to trust, a return to alignment. So as you move forward from this moment, do not rush back into confusion. Do not dismiss what you now feel inside. Let this awareness remain with you gently. Let it guide your decisions. Let it soften your doubts when they arise. Because what you have gained here is not just information, it is perspective. And perspective changes everything. You are safe in your awareness. You are supported in your growth. And you are being guided even now, beyond this message, into experiences that will continue to reveal clarity in your life. Take a moment to simply breathe this in. There is nothing you need to force, nothing you need to prove, nothing you need to chase. What is meant for you will continue to align as you remain aware and grounded in your inner truth. And now, as this message reaches its final space, receive this with peace in your heart. You are protected, you are guided, and you are not alone on this path. If this message has touched something within you, take a moment to acknowledge it. Type "I trust the divine path" in the comments if you feel this clarity rising within your spirit. Blessing code 7777 is now being sealed over your journey. And as this message closes, understand this deeply. Your support helps this mission continue reaching souls who are still lost in confusion, still searching for signs, still unaware of the guidance surrounding them. This is not just support for a channel. It is support for a spiritual mission meant to awaken and protect those who need it most. If you feel led to contribute, know that your giving becomes part of something greater. It helps extend this message further into the world, reaching hearts that are still waiting for clarity. You can support through the PayPal link in the description or through the QR code provided in every video. Every contribution is received as a seed of light, planted into a larger mission of awakening. As it is written, whoever sows generously will also reap generously. And this truth lives now in action, as every act of support becomes a ripple of guidance for someone else's path. I speak this over you now. May your steps be protected, may your mind be clear, and may your path continue to open with divine alignment and peace. Walk forward not in fear, but in trust. Not in confusion, but in light. You are guided. You are held. And you are safe.